Have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on behind your walls or, under your floorboards? Every single house has this secret life, a totally invisible history of materials, geology, and past decisions that can cause a ton of modern-day headaches. So today, we're going to be home detectives. We're decoding that secret history, and trust me, you are going to be surprised by what's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about why this actually matters. We tend to ignore the little drips and gurgles our houses make, right? But the systems they're hooked up to are incredibly powerful. A single burst pipe can dump 60 gallons of water an hour into your home. I want you to just picture that for a second. That's a whole bathtub full of water flooding your house every single hour. That's not just some inconvenience. That is a full-blown emergency unfolding right under your feet. And this is exactly why learning to speak your home's language is so critical. So let's talk about that language, those strange noises, the slow drains, the kind of funky smells. They're not just random annoyances. Nope. They are clues. Think of them as signals from a hidden world, like whispers from the walls trying to warn you that something much bigger is going on. And that really brings us to the central question we're asking today. What is your house trying to tell you? Because if you can just learn to listen, you can solve the mystery before it turns into a total disaster. Just take a look at these common warning signs. I mean, how many of them feel a little familiar? That gurgling toilet, that one drain that always smells a bit off, or maybe you've noticed the water's kind of rusty first thing in the morning. These things are all incredibly common, but here's the secret. They are absolutely not normal. Each one is a symptom of a much deeper issue. So now it's time to go from the symptom to the cause. We're going to dig beneath the floorboards. We're going to look past the drywall and get right into the real infrastructure that makes a house work, or in some cases, not work so well. This really shows the disconnect, doesn't it? That gurgling sound you hear when you flush the toilet, that's not just some weird noise. That's your plumbing literally gasping for air because the sewer vent or maybe even the main line is blocked. And that slow drain in the shower, you think it's hair, right? Well, it could actually be tree roots dozens of feet away that have cracked open your pipes trying to find water. The small, visible problem is almost always a sign of a much larger, invisible one. And that is the real key here. These problems aren't just about your specific house. They're about where your house is. This quote just nails it. To really solve these issues, you have to understand the specific local challenges of a place, its history, its soil, its very foundation. So to see how this all works in the real world, let's become detectives for a minute. We're going to zero in on one town, Hyattsville, Maryland, as our case study. And what we find there reveals this unique plumbing profile that's been shaped by decades of hidden history. Our first big clue is age. A huge number of homes in Hyattsville were built in this 40-year window, from the 1920s all the way to the 1960s. And as we're about to see, the specific building materials that were popular back then are pretty much ticking time bombs in a lot of these homes today. And the key material? Galvanized steel pipes. Now, on the outside, they look totally fine for decades, but their dirty little secret is that they corrode from the inside out. Over time, that internal rust just builds up and up, choking off the water flow and getting ready to fail, often with absolutely no warning at all. Okay, so let's put all the pieces of this puzzle together. This chart lays out Hyattsville's unique profile perfectly. First, you've got the aging infrastructure. Those galvanized pipes we talked about, corroding from the inside, which leads to discolored water and low pressure. Then there's the local geology. Clay-heavy soil that expands when it gets wet and shrinks when it's dry, cracking sewer lines. And finally, the water chemistry. Hard municipal water that creates mineral buildup, which shortens the life of your appliances. It's a perfect storm of three invisible forces, all creating those very visible warning signs. And here is a perfect example of the real-world cost of all this stuff. That hard water we just mentioned, well, it forces your water heater to work so much harder that it can literally slash its lifespan by a third. A water heater that should last 12 years is toast in just 8, all because of an invisible factor in the water you use every single day. All right, so we've diagnosed all these hidden problems. Now for the big question. How do we actually get ahead of them? This last part is all about shifting your mindset from being a victim of your home's history to becoming a proactive, empowered owner. Now, this is where the story of a small town in Maryland becomes your story. The specific details of Hyattsville, the clay soil, the galvanized pipes, they might not apply to where you live. But the core idea, it absolutely does. Every single town, every neighborhood has its own unique, invisible profile. The The story of Hyattsville is really the story of everywhere. So what can you actually do about it? Well, it's simpler than you might think. Step 1. Investigate your own home. Find out when it was built and what kind of pipes they were using back then. Step 2. Investigate your area. What's the local soil like? Is your water hard or soft? What kind of trees are common on your block? And step 3. Be proactive. Get a plumber to run a tiny camera through your pipes once in a while. This checklist empowers you to go from being a bystander to being the lead detective of your own home. So we'll end with this thought. The next time you hear a strange gurgle or see a slow drain, don't just write it off as some random problem. Ask yourself, what invisible history is at play here? What story, buried beneath the ground and hidden in the walls, is my home trying to tell me right now?